Good afternoon. My name is Raymond F. Morrow, M-O-R-R-O-G-H. I go by Ray. Standing to my left is Chief Carl R. Pardini, P-A-R-D-I-N-Y. I am the Commonwealth's attorney for Fairfax County, and of course Carl is the Chief of Police here in Fairfax City. Thank you for being here today. Early this afternoon, a grand jury sitting in the Fairfax County courtroom, Fairfax County Courthouse, returned an indictment charging Jesse Leroy Matthew Jr., 32 years of age, of Charlottesville, Virginia, with 3 felony counts in connection with the sexual assault of a 26-year-old woman, which occurred on September 24th of 2005 here in the city of Fairfax. The 3 counts contained in the indictment are: number 1, attempted capital murder. The second count is abduction with the intent to defile. The third count is sexual penetration with an object against the victim's will. This indictment is a result of an investigation diligently conducted by the Fairfax City Police, led by Chief Carl Pardini and Detective Michael Boone, lead investigator on the case, and many other members of the department who worked closely with me and my staff, as well as others across the Commonwealth, in coordinating this investigation. And as a result of the work of these dedicated professionals, we find ourselves here today taking the first step towards criminal prosecution of the accused. Because it is essential to ensure the integrity of the prosecution in this case, there are very few details that I can give with respect to the investigation or the evidence in the case. As everybody here knows, Mr. Matthew remains in custody in Charlottesville at this time on other charges. At this point, I will turn the conference over to Chief Pardini, who has a few words to say, and I will take some questions, and the Chief, I suppose, will take some questions at the conclusion, and we'll do our best to answer what we can. But please understand that we have a duty to be fair to both sides in this case, and we want to have a full and fair prosecution. So with that being said, let me introduce Chief Carl Pardini. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morrow. Good evening, and thank you all for being here this evening with us. Again, I'm Chief Carl Pardini of the City of Fairfax Police Department. I'd like to take a few brief moments to really talk a little bit about the case, but more importantly, thank our investigative team who put so many hours worth of investigative work into this case. They never gave up. Not over 9 years. This case has been going on for nine years. We've actively investigated it and worked very, very diligently on the case. So the credit really does go back to our investigators. They actively pursued investigative leads, followed up on those leads, and analyzed new information as it became available to us. We've worked very closely with the Commonwealth Attorney's Office and other agencies as appropriate, and I want to applaud everybody for their teamwork and effort in this case. We are continuing to work with the authorities in Charlottesville, Albemarle County, and Virginia State Police, and I want to thank the public and the media for their patience. I realize that everybody wants answers to questions and information to flow very, very quickly, but we simply cannot comment on the investigation and the evidence in this case. We've done this, again, to protect the integrity of the ongoing investigation and ensuing prosecution. The facts and details in this case will be revealed as the case proceeds through the judicial system. Because this case is now in the judicial system, it is not appropriate for the police department to release or discuss any investigative or evidentiary information. All questions regarding this case will be referred to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. Again, thank you for your time and for your interest in this case. I appreciate the hard work that's gone into this case, into this investigation, and we have a lot more work to do as the case proceeds forward. Thank you again, and that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions?
Did you say what links Jesse Matthews to the Fairfax County area, why he might have been in this area, and what you may have linking the cases here?
I can't comment on that based upon the rules governing prosecutors. Now we're at the stage where we've charged someone with the offenses, and so at this point I'm not allowed to talk about the evidence, unfortunately.
Will he be brought here immediately, or do the two jurisdictions have to battle out?
Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, will he be brought here immediately? We will be asking for a bench warrant this Thursday in the Circuit Court of Fairfax County, and I suspect that relatively shortly after that, Mr. Matthew will be brought up here. Obviously, I have coordinated with the law enforcement departments in Charlottesville and Albemarle, as well as the prosecutors down there, and we will work together to make this a seamless transition, and it's possible to transport a defendant to and from various courthouses, and that's what we'll do.
Is there a sense that it will be tried here before?
That's a possibility, but I couldn't say for sure. I know that they're working very diligently down in Albemarle on their case, and as we all know, they've had a recent breakthrough. These are all very complex cases, and all I can say is I'm willing to go first, last, or whenever. Whatever's the right thing to do, that's what we'll do.
Has the victim in this case been shown a picture of Mr. Matthew, and has she identified him as her attacker?
I can't answer that question because it would be evidentiary.
Are there any other cases, unsolved cases out there in that time frame, either in city or county, that
I can't
can't get back?
I can't answer that question. The question was, are there any other pending or cases that may or may not be related? I can't answer that question at this point.
Is the victim in the 2005 case, sir, still helping in the case?
The victim is grateful to the lead detective who stayed in touch with her regularly over the course of 9 years and promised her he'd never give up, and he never did, and I wouldn't expect less from him. And so I think it's fair to say that she's grateful that the case will go forward to whatever resolution it comes to.
Any reason to believe that she was targeted, or do you think this was random, perhaps, and just out looking for someone in the moment?
I can't answer that question at this point because it would be a comment on the evidence.
Has there been a court date set at all?
No, there has not been a court date set in Fairfax County yet, and I don't think that'll happen Thursday, but I think it'll be relatively soon.
Can you at all, sir, in a general sense, talk about what happened on that? It's already out there.
You know, I know that there have been releases, I think recently and in the past. I have not been involved with any of those releases or have not really been especially aware of them. Because I'm the prosecutor on the case, I have very strict rules governing what I can and can't say. So I don't think it would be appropriate for me and really the chief at this point, now that there's been a charge, to comment. I realize things are out there in the media, but I prefer to keep this as clean as possible.
Do you know if he has a lawyer here on the Fairfax charges?
No, I know that he has a lawyer in Charlottesville, Jim Camblos, who's a former Commonwealth's attorney and is a very experienced and very fine attorney. I suspect I'll be speaking to Jim, but I couldn't say whether or not Mr. Camblos would follow this case up here or not.
You plan to seek the death penalty in this case?
The death penalty is not available on these charges because our victim is alive. Okay, anything else?
Tell the public, after getting this person, well, coming to the conclusion that this may be a person, what do you tell the public, citizens of Fairfax?
Well, at this stage, you know, there's a presumption of innocence that applies to this defendant and every defendant. I can tell the public that I'm proud of the Fairfax City Police Department for their work. and that I will do my job as best I can, and hopefully justice will be served.
What took a while for this indictment to come?
I couldn't.
Was it custody? What took a while for this indictment?
Well, it took a while because we were investigating the case, still collecting evidence. We're still collecting evidence, frankly, but the delay recently was due to just being thorough. It's always better to be cautious and thoughtful during an investigation, and it's my policy not to charge until I feel the case is ready to go forward.
Is the victim in the United States?
I'd rather not say where she is, but she is cooperative. I think out of respect for her privacy and given the attention that this case has naturally drawn, in fairness to her, I'm not gonna comment on that.
You've invested this case a number of years. How do you feel now that an indictment has come forward?
Well, you know, I've learned the hard way over the past 30 years that this is just the first step. And the criminal justice system, you know, it can be a long, hard row to hoe, but I have confidence in these police officers and this chief and in my staff that we will be able to go forward and bring justice in this instance.
In relationship to the Hannah Brand case, was there anything that happened with that that enabled you to be out here today making this announcement?
Well, I would say sort of indirectly, that case was of value to this department in conducting its investigation. Obviously, law enforcement coordinates in situations like this, and that was done here, but that's about all I could say about it. I couldn't be any more specific than that. I'm sorry.
When you think about brutality, this beloved consultant young woman, someone on this, how does that affect you as you go forward into the prosecution?
Well, I'm ever mindful of the situation here. Again, this case stands alone. He's not charged with the things well, actually, I guess he's not charged with murder, if that's what you're getting at. And you know, this case stands alone. I have to prove my case if I can beyond a reasonable doubt. And you know, I think everyone is affected by the situation at Charlottesville, if that's what you're asking, including me.
Does the charge of attempted capital murder give, without going into the details, give the public an indication of how violent the attack was, or legally is that just a completely separate thing?
Well, I'd have to say that, you know, the charges speak for themselves. The indictments are over there in the courthouse. They're public documents. I really don't want to comment on the charges. I think they sort of speak for themselves. Okay, thank you all. Take care.